let's begin with the extinction headlines. We always talk about extinction first. Is is humanity, are humans going to become extinct? Like ever first? That's the first question we have to answer. And then very soon? We'll find out, right? Okay, here's a headline that came out this week. Says scientists think they figured out when the sun will explode and kill us all. Oh my God! I hope it doesn't happen next week. It's planning on going out to the park. I hope it does so. I hope the sun takes its time and does it in a million years or so, at least. It says the sun's life cycle will end as soon as 5 billion years from now. So how is it going to kill us all? While the idea of the sun dying is scary, there's a chance humanity won't even be around to experience it. Oh, okay. I thought so. But he says the Earth's oceans will be vaporized by energy from the sun, etc., etc. Okay, and so, but then he says at the time, the sun's brightness will also have increased by around 10%. There are also other threats of climate change to take into account as well. Okay, so I guess he's saying that if none of that kills us, then the sun kills us. Okay, it says the future of the Earth is grim. Perhaps that's why so many people are so focused on space travel and getting us to other planets. So people think they're going to escape the Earth. So when the sun explodes, we won't have to be around here, right? We'll be in a nicer solar system, I guess. When that's just beginning, we just move over there. And not only would it allow humanity to continue surviving, but it would give us a new home to go to when the sun eventually dies. I think a lot of these people have a lot of fantasy on their heads. They've been watching too much Star Trek. They think we're going to go to another planet. And then they're talking about the sun exploding and killing us. I don't think we'll be around by then, for sure. Okay, but that's my 5 cents worth. I think human extinction is right around the corner. We're the last humans on Earth. And these people are talking about the sun exploding and killing us. Okay, in a billion years. Okay, another similar headline. Ukraine, China, and climate change tagged as Doomsday Clock holds at 100 seconds to midnight, matching riskiest view ever. Yeah, there's this, for all those who are not aware of it, there's the Doomsday Clock. And it's been around since after World War II. And a lot of it had to do with the atomic bombs. Will we ever throw them again at each other? And so that's when they started with all this doomsday thing. Uh-oh, am I having trouble with YouTube? I hope I'm still on, fellas. Let me know because I got a message from YouTube here. Okay. Let me know if you can see and hear me. I just got a warning message that something's wrong. Let me know. I check everything to be okay. So let me know as soon as you can get your, so I get my bearings back. Okay. Okay, well, I don't know. Okay, thank you. Okay, let me continue here. Said scientists, these atomic scientists. In fact, there's 11 Nobel laureates among them, and they claim these are the issues that are hot today that might justify pushing that hand on the clock further and further to 12 o'clock. And that's one of them is the new variants of COVID-19. The other, the slow response of climate change. A lot of these scientists are worried, very much worried, that the politicians are not doing enough about climate change. And then there's all these possible wars like Ukraine, Taiwan, maybe coming up, maybe countries like Iran and North Korea, these mavericks out there that might throw nukes or build them or whatever. So, but despite this, the bulletin is optimistic about technological advances to mitigate existential risk, which is kind of strange because if it seems like a contradiction, because on the one hand, they're saying the second hand is, 100 seconds away from doomsday. And then on the other, they say, oh, but we're optimistic. You would think we're optimistic. We're 15 minutes away, from doomsday. So you wonder about these scientists. Anyways, fellow says, comment that someone made, says Germany should be worried because of Ukrainian war probably coming up. Russia provides them with most of their heating energy. Yeah, and I think Germany is worried, and now you have a government which is probably a little closer to Russia than the previous one. It sounds like that. I don't know if that's true. But there are a lot of relations between Germany and Russia. And so the question is whether Germany is completely on board with the NATO philosophy. They might act differently if Russia happens to attack Ukraine, especially if Russia does not attack so openly. Maybe it's a little skirmish here and there, something that doesn't justify, um, severing all relations. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's something that's on the books right now. All newspapers are dealing with this subject. Okay? It's an important issue, I think. Okay, on the other side of the world, we have a similar situation. China obtaining TSMC fabs. This is Taiwan Semiconductor. Okay, probably the biggest prize that Taiwan has, in my opinion. And I expect important equipment would be sabotaged or spirited away if China invaded. Yeah, and I kind of agree with that. They can destroy it, they can take it away. Where they can take it away, it's not so easy to dismount all that equipment. Okay, or they'll take maybe the most important equipment, leave some of the less technologically advanced equipment behind. Who knows? They might even destroy the fab. All that might happen. It's part of the war tactics or strategy, right? And I'm sure some of that is being thought out already in advance if China invades Taiwan someday. Okay, but yeah, says I'm not sure that TSMC owns this technology. The issue there is that you can see the fab there, and I used to work in places like that, and they own it because they own the equipment, and they have the specs there to manufacture chips. So no, once you have the fab, that's more important in that sense than design, because design is done in the offices. And they can design chips in other places as well, especially if they have the blueprints right there for TSMC. No, the important part is the fab, the hardware. Okay, that's important because they have the equipment there. So yeah, unless they decide to take it away, remove it from Taiwan in case of an invasion, or they destroy it, I think it would fall in the hands of mainland China. So that's something you got to think about if there is a war, which apparently is coming up. A lot of these countries have interests, Ukraine, in Taiwan, in the Middle East. So it might be a great year for war. It's about time we had a good war. I mean, right? Okay, fellow says about extinction. He says, when you introduce the word if into your propositions, then conclusions that follows becomes a prediction. If you don't explain the mechanism. I didn't explain the mechanism. I thought I did. But the guesswork based on if leads you to imagine possible scenarios. Okay, basically, Bill says, this is what caused extinction of the dinosaurs. Okay, this is the mechanism. Okay, so I did give you a mechanism. Now, project that to humans. Okay, can man elude the same mechanism, the same process? Right, good question. Man cannot elude, right? That's my conclusion. Okay, we can safely say that someday humans become extinct. What is this reasoning? I understand what you're saying. Well, I don't know if you do or not. I mean, he says, what is this reasoning? And then he contradicts himself saying, I understand what you're saying, but then, does he understand or doesn't he? I have no idea. And again, the argument is very simple. If whatever happened to the dinosaurs, just to mention one case, we can go with the archosaurs or the amphibians, Carboniferous, whatever. We can go with any era, okay, any epoch. And we say, well, what happened to them? Well, this is what happened to them, okay? Whatever it did, let's say we figured it out. Now we take that cookie cutter, right, and we apply it to man. And we find out through reasoning that we can't do anything about that same mechanism that killed, these animals in the past. Well, then, we have a mechanism of extinction. And again, it's got nothing to do with the future, with prediction. It's got to do with the fact that if we cannot elude that mechanism, it's a done deal. Okay? Again, I give the example of buffaloes running over a cliff or someone stepping over a cliff. Well, as soon as he takes that step, I'm going to say, if you take that step, you're going to fall down over the cliff. It's not a question of whether he's going to hit the ground or not. If he takes that step, he will fall. Okay, so it's a guaranteed thing. So if the premise is correct, if we accept it, if we concede it, then we have to conclude that whatever follows from that premise will happen. And so I don't know how else to explain that. It's not a prediction. It's got to do with mechanism. Okay, and so when people focus on the word prediction, say, oh, you're talking about the future, and they get lost. No, this is not about talking about the future and about the day that it's going to happen, predictions and foretelling and crystal balls. None of that. It has to do with mechanism. If you cannot elude a mechanism, the conclusion follows from that reasoning. So I don't know what else, how else to say that. Okay, moving on here, we have another fellow that says, Bill, why don't you, I think it's the same fellow, Bill, why don't you open a dictionary once and for all? Okay, I'll try. I'll try to open a dictionary. I don't have too many of them, but yeah, I can think I can find one. Techno and logy, in other words, technology from the Greek. And he goes over the etymology of the word technology, where it comes from and all that stuff, which is totally irrelevant. Please don't do that anymore. Drives me nuts. Puts all these etymologies where the words came from. Nobody cares, especially when none of the words in the ordinary dictionary have can be considered to be scientific, especially the keywords. Okay, so if technology came out of your ordinary dictionary, irrelevant. And again, we don't rely on authority, we defend our definitions. So if we have an irrational definition, we don't care what the etymology was or how it's been used in the past. We censor it. We say something's wrong with that definition, we have to revise it. That's the way it works in science, okay? We don't use irrational definitions simply because of authority and tradition. That's the issue. Okay, it says has its object the application and use of technical, okay, and in broad sense, that is to say of everything. Okay, it covers everything, including the word knowledge and science, etc. Yeah, this is the problem. Technology has nothing to do with science or with knowledge. Okay, and so to put everything in there and say I got it from the dictionary, yeah, you haven't said anything. That can be applied to the solution of practical problems, to the optimization, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, no, that's not a definition of technology. Okay, let's put a rational one. Okay, and it's got to do with two words. One is invention, and the other one is innovation. Today, these two words are essentially treated as synonyms, even by the patent office. Okay, and so we have to distinguish innovation from invention. Invention has to do with objects, with things, with tangible things, and innovation has to do with ideas, with concepts. Okay, and so you can patent an innovation at the patent office because again they haven't defined exactly what they mean by invention and innovation. As far as the patent office is concerned, they're synonyms, and now we have to distinguish those in physics because physics deals only with tangible objects out there with in everyday physics, right? With especially if you're going to do an invention, it better be seeable and tangible. Okay, and so here it is. Let me put it over here so you can compare it. Okay, innovation, implementation of ideas, introduction of new methods. What is an invention? A new tangible gadget. Okay, so these two words are not synonyms. Invention has to do with objects, innovation has to do with concepts. Invention has to do with a manufacturing economy, innovation with a service economy. A computer program is not an invention. Even though the patent office might accept it as an invention, it is not for the purposes of physics. We have to distinguish these two words, okay? And so the patent office, they might accept it and consider them synonym, but we don't, okay? So when people equate invention with innovation, they're talking about ordinary speech, means that they simply got it out of the dictionary and they copied and pasted, which is what this fellow did. He just copied and pasted. He didn't even analyze what he was copying or pasting. He just copy paste. My God. Well, it says, why did the Neanderthals have sex with sapiens and not produce children? Yet they are of the genus, of the order of the primates, etc., etc. Okay, he said that we all descend from the same tree, essentially, right? And they did not have a human genome. No, because they were not humans. Okay, are gorillas the same as they have a human genome? And no, the gorillas do not have human genome. Okay, why, in your opinion, nothing came out? Well, again, because they were so different. If you have sex with a gorilla or with a chimpanzee, I don't think anything good will come out of that. No, nothing will come out. In fact, they tried the human Z and nothing came out. So why would something come out of Neanderthal with humans, or with, for example, Homo erectus and humans? Why would something come out of there? Okay, you have to specify or find out why. But more importantly, how would they meet in the wild? Why would a human, go out there into Neanderthal territory and suddenly decide to have sex with this other species? Okay, try it one day. Just take a lion and take it over to, tiger territory or vice versa, and see if they all decide to share their wives or whatever. And so do not tell me species, because there is also a proposal that Neanderthals were a subspecies of the sapiens. So nothing certain. How rational is it for your science to say species? Well, yeah, you have to define the term species, and there we try to do that. Viable breeding. Okay, that's what species is essentially. Okay, so if you can have viable children, offspring with someone, that someone is part of your species. Now, it means you have to have something come out, okay, first of all. But if whatever comes out is a hybrid, and that hybrid is sterile, then they're not of the same species, or they're at the borderline of being the same species. Maybe next time they have success, maybe next time they don't, okay? But yeah, you need to define the word species, because that's what interbreeding has to do with. You're saying, okay, if they interbreed, will they have successful children, viable children? If they do, then they are of the same species. Their genes, their makeup is not so far apart. Okay, and the question is whether the Neanderthals and humans were even similar after 500,000 years of separation, or so. We don't know exactly how long they were separated, but more than separation. The Neanderthals grew up, evolved in Arctic Europe. And they came out of, the, apparently, right? They came out, no, they didn't migrate there. The guys who migrated there were, if anything, their ancestors, which were the antecessors or the Heidelbergs, which didn't migrate there either, because they came from the Homo erectus, who migrated there maybe anywhere between 800,000 and 1 million years ago. So those were the parents of Neanderthals. And, by the time we get to the Arctic, which this Arctic weather, there was Northern Europe, we're talking about maybe 40,000, I'd say even less, 35,000 years ago. And so when we got there, I don't think there were any Neanderthals. That's one issue. The other issue is that if there were any Neanderthals still alive, they were nude. They invented no clothes. Neanderthals had no clothes. Here we were, in this freezing cold, we were, wrapped up. And so here you see this Neanderthal looking at you, and you looking at them. He sees you with all these clothes. He doesn't know what you are. What did you put on? So yeah, this is my take on that. Is Neanderthals and humans were so far apart, and they had no common language. They had probably no similar sense. You got to smell them. Okay, I'm sure each one marked their territories. I'm even saying that they had, again, different weapons. Somewhat different cultures, because by that time the Neanderthals were sedentary, whereas the humans, or Cro-Magnons, right? They were moving into their territory. They were nomadic. So there were a lot of differences for a human to sleep with a female Neanderthal or vice versa. Okay? I don't think it ever happened. And here's another issue. Fellow says, compare or make a similarity with the results of Calhoun's experiment with a human species. No. Why? Well, he says comparing 8 mice against 2 humans, for example, Adam and Eve, because in the case of Calhoun's experiments, we had 4 pairs of mice, and they immediately, each one took their wives, each one of the male mice took their wives and went out and squatted some territory and started having kids. Okay, and here they're talking about 2 humans, like Adam and Eve, are we the same thing? We came out of Adam and Eve, apparently. But it says, given perfect living conditions, man adapts to the environment and survive. Okay, everything they need, but who gives us everything we need? In other words, the mice had everything they needed. They were protected from cats and other predators. Okay, they were inside this place. They couldn't get out. Okay, and they just multiplied in there. That's essentially the experiment. And he's saying that we gave them everything. We gave them food, we gave them water, and we gave them, nesting material. So they had everything they needed in there. They didn't have to go out and look for it. And he's saying that humans are not like that. In other words, regular humans, like in the cities, we're pretty much can leave the city, come back in, and do whatever we want. Okay, so he says, how similar to mice are we? Well, I think we are quite like mice, beginning with the fact that we're part of the mammal world. Both mice and humans, okay? We all come from mammals, and we all belong to the mammal world, okay? It's because of the way we have children, okay? And then he continues, he says, is the Calhoun experiment comparable to planet Earth? Well, in a way it is, and for what he says next. He says, the mice will surely have tried to escape the Earth. Is it a perfect cage where humanity has no escape? Yeah, I'm saying that the Earth is a perfect cage. We cannot escape Earth, okay? We will never colonize another planet. We'll never leave. This is it. We are born here, we die here. So in that sense, yeah, we are very much like these mice. We're trapped on Earth. We don't have the freedom to leave, okay? We can run an experiment, go to the moon, maybe go to Mars, and that's about it. Lab experiment, that's fine, but that's not evacuating Earth, okay? Or forming a colony somewhere. And are we humans also an experiment? Yeah, in a way, I think we're an experiment of Mother Nature, okay? So You can look at it that way, okay? Uh, we're our own experiment. We're experiment with ourselves. Okay, we go out there and we do experiments like go to the moon and we go to Mars maybe tomorrow, and we go and come back, and then we stay here. I don't know of anyone who lives on the moon or in Mars yet, and I doubt there ever will be because extinction will catch us with our pants down. But fellow insists. He says, "Hey, well, what if we go to the moon?" I like this one. It says, "The conquest of space, to be called more properly black sky." Is one of the most interesting challenges of humanity if we did not waste time and money in developing military technology that can self-destruct us, totally eliminate us in an extinction of the species. I would already be on vacation on Luna Hotel with a view of the Sea of Tranquility and our blue pearl in the background. So I guess there he is. He thinks he's going to be on a hammock, near the beach, the Sea of Tranquility and with the earth in the background. Yeah, sure. I think a lot of these people watch too much Star Trek. That's what it is. They think we can go to the moon and just live there, and they have this in the back of their minds that this is possible. It's never going to happen. That's all to keep your attention. And people say, oh, we're going to go to Mars. We're going to build our station there, and we're going to live there. We're going to expand through Mars. It's never ever going to happen. If anything, the best that will ever happen is we send a few astronauts to Mars. Could happen. I think we have the technology to do this. Okay, send a few astronauts to Mars, maybe even put a station at some point, and whether it will ever be inhabited, I doubt it, because they would have to supply it constantly with everything from Earth, and each expedition will cost millions. Right now, I think the Earth doesn't have enough money in the treasury for all that expense. No, if anything, we go to Mars, step on it, come back, and never go back again, just like we did with the moon. There's no reason to go to the moon. There's no reason to go to Mars. There's no military reason to go to Mars. I mean, you can develop their technology to go to Mars. That might help the military. Yeah, and that could happen. But going to Mars and then staying in Mars because that's going to help us in some way in a war here on Earth? Absolutely not. People are thinking in terms of what they watch on in the movies, on TV. They say, oh, we're going to be shooting these laser guns. Or maybe they've been playing too much with these paint guns on weekends. My God. Okay, here we have Paul says, also with the moon. He said, the moon landing, I believe in space and science and a globe Earth. But to me, it's abundantly clear that the U.S. government lied about going. It was a dirty trick played for propaganda and to save face against the Russian program. Some people don't believe that we went to the moon. And I guess, you can take that on to anything else. It's like if you don't experience it yourself, you won't believe it. So JFK never existed. He was never killed. Okay, Lincoln never happened. Napoleon never happened. Because I wasn't there to touch Lincoln or Napoleon, or Caesar, Julius Caesar. So if I'm not there, then it never happened because I wasn't there. So I have no experience, no hands-on experience with it. And so I have no hands-on experience with the moon, or with these people going to the moon. So it never happened either because I wasn't there. And the nuclear bombs never happened because I wasn't there, and so on. And people think that existence is a question of, having touching and seeing. So the ball that they're playing soccer with on the other side of the planet right now doesn't exist for me because I'm not there. I haven't been able to touch it or see it, so it doesn't exist. That's their reasoning. And so, you start to wonder. Yeah, you have to take some things for granted, and that's that, what we do is what the ancients used to do also in their cultures, which is pass from one generation to the other some of the stories that their folks passed on to them. And so they took a lot of these for granted. A lot of them were, mixed with mythology and so on. Okay, but today we've gotten a little better on that. Also, we got better at lying, but it's harder to lie with people who have already some experience with lying. Okay, so, you cannot say, well, JFK never happened, and Roosevelt never happened, and Lincoln never happened, Washington never happened. You can't say that because, these things have been passed on from generation to generation, and what are we going to say? These people did not exist simply because I never saw them, never touched them. Okay, and so here, this one, maybe he didn't see men go to the moon, and I don't mean through the TV. I mean, like, he wasn't on the moon to see them land there, so we're not supposed to believe that humans went to the moon simply because of this, because I wasn't there. I mean, what's the reasoning? And so here I can only provide a couple of off the top of my head, by the way, okay, because I think we did have the technology to go to the moon without any problem, okay? And these are other questions he might ask himself. The Soviets did not question the moon landings. You would think that if the Soviets uh, didn't believe it happened, they would have said something. Say, well, no, you guys said you went to the moon, but it really didn't happen. And then the question is also goes in reverse. The Americans could have said, well, Gagarin and Tereshkova and Laika, the dog, those were all hoaxes. Russians never went up there. They could have said that, right? Because, even the United States accepts today that Gagarin was the first man to orbit the Earth. And Tereshkova, the first woman. And so, why would they concede such a thing? It would have been much easier for the United States to say, well, no, that didn't happen. The Russians are lying. I mean, we got to take it in both directions, okay? And the same with the Russians. The Russians should have questioned the moon landings and say, well, that never happened. And that's not the case. The Russians accept that the moon landings did happen. They were worried because, all this technology was developed in great measure. That was one of the reasons they were worried. So no, the Russians accept that the Americans went to the moon, and therefore this notion that, it was just a dirty trick for propaganda, I don't think the Russians bought it, the propaganda. They knew it was real. And then you have so many missions. I mean, you're talking about at least 60 years since the 60s, okay? And you're saying they're all fake. Nobody saw anything. You can go to, the space platform there in Florida and watch the rockets go out, okay? And you can film them. Take your camera, take your telescope, and you can watch it go out into outer space. So we haven't gone into space. We haven't put satellites out there. Why wouldn't we go to the moon if we have the ability to go into orbit? Okay, so these are other things you got to ask yourself. And then Chinese recently, they started their space program relatively recently, but they don't go to space either. Again, you got to go deeper. You can't just pull one thing out of nowhere and say, well, I don't think they went to space because it was just for propaganda. That argument can easily be turned around and thrown against you. So, all I can tell you is, yeah, we did go to space, to the moon. There was no purpose to go to the moon in the first place other than to develop technology. But once we went to the moon, or at least the Americans went to the moon, they found no further reason to go to the moon. Why would they go to the moon to do what? Plant potatoes? I mean, you know what it costs to send someone out there? Just insurance costs? And then, when you bring them back, you send another crew, and you got to keep feeding them. I mean, assuming you create a station on the moon, right? A permanent one. You got to keep feeding them and taking air and water and all this stuff up there. What for? What are they going to do out there on the moon that they can't do, like, for example, with a Skylab, an orbiting lab, which is much closer by? So again, there's no reason to go to the moon. That's why we haven't gone to the moon again, because what are we going to go there for? Just to pull some rocks, see the dark side of the moon and say, oh, it looks pretty, take a snapshot and bring the picture back? No, we'll never go to the moon again for any real reason. Maybe just to develop technology, that's it. But the moon itself or Mars itself, there's no purpose, none whatsoever. So it'll never happen because, again, there's no reason to go there other than to say we made it once. We touched base, came back, we did it. Let's celebrate, pull out the champagne bottles, and that's it. That's where it dies. It won't go beyond that. Okay, fellow says, Moros, the god of doom, has spread his spirit of impending doom. Ooh. Who drives mortals to their deadly fate? And Morris has nothing but pessimistic view for humanity. And there's Morris at the bottom there. He's the Greek god of fate, of doom. Again, people think that when I'm doing all these predictions, as they call them, it's not predictions. I'm talking about mechanisms, and they focus on prediction. They think I'm an astrologer or something, with my crystal ball and saying, oh, on the 1st of July of the year 2029, we're going to become extinct. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there's a mechanism we cannot avoid, and it's the mechanism that causes all mass extinctions. And that's a little different than saying, I predict. This is not Nostradamus. Nostradamus, okay, he just got it on top of his head. I'm not doing that. I'm saying, look, I've got a mechanism that is foolproof. You can't beat it. No matter what you do, you can't beat this mechanism. The mechanism is the collapse of the global economy. We can't do anything about it, no matter what we do. And it comes to the subject, it's coming up in a couple more of the year, comments that people made. Here's the first one. Fellow says, Bill, economists are saying that the economy is doing really good right now, almost too good. This is why the supply chains can't keep up with demand. Deliveries are falling behind, partly because some people don't want to work, and I guess they're not paying enough to get people to go to work, and so deliveries are falling behind, and demand is I guess overpowering supply. Right? I have noticed from a personal aspect that the big box stores and other stores, chain stores, are very much busy all the time. I don't know what to think of this. Yeah. All I can tell you is that, first of all, we're moving. You got to look at the big picture, macroeconomics. Okay, and what I'm saying, and not micro. You're talking about microeconomics, and I'm saying macroeconomics trumps microeconomics. All these people who are, what is it? I call them narco. What is it? They're called the narco capitalists. I call them narco caps. Okay, these folks are typically micro economists. They don't think about the macro world. Okay, and what I'm saying is macro trumps micro. In other words, you can't develop yourself, small guy, in a world that doesn't develop itself. So if the world is shutting down because macroeconomics is falling apart, it doesn't matter if a company here and another one there does well. Okay, so I overrule microeconomics with macroeconomics. What's happening to macroeconomics? We're moving into the service world. Services is unemployment. That's what it is. Another word for unemployment. When you do services, all you're doing is passing money around. Until that money goes into building something or something that's tangible, could be food, could be a building, could be a car. Until that translates into something like that, there is no growth. All you have is pushing money around. I give you money because you signed a contract. The other guy gives money to the other fellow because he's in the insurance business. He insured the operation. The other guy puts it in the bank, and the bank controls the money and helps people, manage their accounts. What is all that? Nothing. All we're doing is passing money around. What does a programmer do? Nothing. All he does is play around with the computer, change some programs there, and for doing that, he gets money. What did he do? Nothing. He created an abstraction. Until all that turns into something solid, we have no growth. Growth has to do only with tangible things. Physics, real physics, not with philosophy. And when, like I said, when you're up there with God and looking down at the planet, what do you see? Well, what is growth? Growth is real growth. Growth of that which you can see, maybe touch, right? You see roads, buildings, you see fields of corn, houses, cars, ships, airplanes, whatever. You have growth. But we can't see the promises. We can't see what the insurance company promised you or the contract or whatever. All that is fake. And so when you move into the service world and abandoning the manufacturing, the tangible part of our economy, you go into unemployment. And so that's one issue for this fellow. The other issue is that, I don't know how many countries are doing well. A lot of countries are not doing well. And I think just like within a country, you get the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. That's a trend that's been going on for quite a while. It happens also on a worldwide scale where you have the rich countries getting richer and the poor countries getting poorer with respect to them. That's also happening. And the question is, how far can the rich become rich and the poor become poor when the rich depend on the poor? So keep all this in mind. The macro is important. Don't look at, I saw the store sell a lot of stuff and the numbers are going up. As I showed you just now with the graph, what is it, 2020, they were expecting a big rise and they didn't expect this COVID thing to come around. So the predictions were wrong and they had really negative growth during 2020. Compared to that, 2021 was, positive. Why? Because they went down so low that any improvement over that previous year was, positive. So they had like 5% growth. But was that real growth? No, that was growth with respect to the previous year. I don't think we got back to 2019 yet. So keep that in mind. There's a lot of stuff going on. You can't treat that so superficially. Okay, you got to look at it in more detail. Okay, and final issue, fellow says, our main reason for extinction is stupidity. We have screwed our culture up to the point that some purposefully try to degrade it further along with morality. Others hate our traditional culture and want it eliminated, which will destroy everything. Well, again, people get into politics, and that's what they want to talk about. Here we try to talk about physics, meaning mechanisms, meaning theories, meaning explanations. Okay? We have to explain a mechanism, and the extinction theory has to do with the mechanism, the causes of extinction of man. And so that's got very little to do with the rich taking advantage of the poor. That's always happened there. Ask Marx. Karl Marx would have told you, would have given you a sermon on that. And, that's always happened where the rich took advantage of the poor. One human taking advantage of another. That's always happened. That's not the issue. The issue is, can we do anything about extinction? Can the rich, with all their power, all their might, all their money, can they do anything about extinction? My answer is no.